Ladies and gentlemen, Two Dudes Talk Music in conjunction with E. Brown Industries and Big Jerry Burger brings to you everybody's new favourite game show, Get in the Bin. Now, let's go to our host, Reverend Raph and the beer buddy, Kyle. Welcome back to the Two Dudes Talk Music YouTube channel. I am the Reverend Raph, joined once again by my good friend Kyle, aka the beer buddy.
What's going on, everybody?
And our new buddy, Leucia, who has been with us all week talking about his incredible solo projects, playing in fucking Vienna when he was 6 years old. Absolute prodigies. Playing,
maestro.
Just like absolutely crazy talented dude. Doing everything and anything. And so I'm very, very curious here. But we had the podcast on Thursday, so you should go and check that out. And yesterday we had the Quick Question Quarter, also worth checking out. But today we're here for our favorite Sunday night game show, Get in the Bin. And this is where we ask our guests if they had phenomenal cosmic power and could snap their fingers to eliminate things out of the music business or change things out of the music business if you want to be a little more polite about it. What would they be and why? They can be big or small. They can be selfish or altruistic. They can be any elements of the business, the type in the guts of it or tangential or anything that you think would improve the music business in your opinion. What is your first thing that you would change about the music business and why?
I would get rid of talent shows. Anything. I don't care if it's America's Got Talent, Australian Idol, I don't give a fuck. I think I would get rid of...
Where's my soundboard? I need to play the cheers.
Yeah. I would get rid of talent shows. They are possibly the most cancerous, poisonous thing in the music business, bar none, in my opinion. And that includes labels. I consider talent shows worse than labels. As far as not just being an independent musician, but also just as being a pursuant of art itself. Like, they are just objectively bad. They are 99% of the time skinny coded. They are almost always entirely racist to whatever local industry they represent. So in Korea, they're going to represent people who look like the predominant demographic. Mm-hmm. Likewise goes for America, likewise goes for Australia. That is not only counterintuitive to the pursuit of art, but also it is entirely irrelevant. Things like The Masked Singer, things like The Voice, they're all shit. Not only do the contracts that these people sign, as in when I say the people, I mean the artists and the musicians who take part in these competitions. Not only do these contracts that these people sign lock them into absolutely horrifying conditions. When I say that, I mean, for example, not naming names, but a friend of mine recently took part in a talent competition similar to as a vocalist, and basically his contract forbade him from doing any gigs as his artist name. Or that anything could be linked to him. Basically, he couldn't use his social media for anything that wasn't related to that until he was off the show, and even then for 6 months after he was off the show. Can you imagine being an artist of any kind? We've just spoken both on the podcast and during the quick questions, we've just spoken about like how hard it is to make a living or to thrive, even though it is now possible, more possible than ever. How hard it is. Like, you got to really hustle. Now imagine going on this competition, hoping you'll either make some cash, some notoriety, make some fame for your quick, brief moment in the limelight, and you're then told, you know what, we're not going to let you through because our network wants us to promote this type of visual, this type of narrative. For reference, this guy got booted, I think, within the top 20. He made top 10, I think, or top 8. And he was told, despite the judges loving his performance, the producers took him aside and said, hey, look, you're getting kicked from the show. It's nothing personal. It's just, this is the narrative we want to follow. This is the direction the show's going.
Story.
Yeah, that's it.
Didn't have a good enough sob story. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. And then he got booked for 6 months thereafter.
Yeah, because he's not allowed to be,
And it's
See?
just
If it sounds
talent
like it's too
shows.
good to be true.
Absolutely. The contracts that these talent shows have these musicians or artists or talent performers sign is predatory at best, murderous at worst. There
I
have
am
probably been more bankruptcies caused by talent shows than any level of success stories.
I am like
I agree
the
with
thing
that.
is, these kind of talent shows have been around long enough that these horror stories are now out there.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
people who anyone who cares to look even a little bit
Yep.
will find all of these horror stories there.
Yeah.
I do not understand how people continue to go on these shows thinking, and like this is nothing against your friend, like they obviously had their own goals and what they were trying to get out of it, but I feel
Yep.
like there's a lot of people that still go on these shows thinking that they're going to get discovered and that they're going to get, it's going to be their ticket to the big time, and they do all this stuff. And like, I mean, you know when like first couple of seasons of Australian Idol, sure, I was following along, the whole thing. But
Mhm.
once I started to learn how it all operated, and like, before anyone's even on TV, they're auditioning in front of producers, and so you're like,
Oh yeah.
well, okay, so then that means they're intentionally letting really bad people through to
Yep.
perform in front of the judges to humiliate them
Yep.
purely for television.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And as soon as I learned that, I'm like, oh, it's like that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Like, no, that's just like,
They're coin operated munchies. Or the way I saw it after the first season, I'm like, hold on, this is just glorified karaoke.
It's karaoke, and more so than that, it is dance monkey dance, like as in
yes.
like dance for me monkey,
Yeah,
like it,
yeah. Coin slot.
absolutely, and I think about those people who have gone on the internet, who have gone on these shows, like heart in hand, and yeah, they're not as talented. Some of them, lack rhythm, and it's kind of cringe. Okay, so they've gone on there, heart in hand, thinking that they've got a shot.
Mm.
If your friend who's only ever sung karaoke says he's going to go on Australian Idol or something like that, and you know in your heart of hearts that this guy he's not going to do that. Like, you want to say, give it a shot, but like, because you want to be supportive, but at the same time, you got to set those expectations. He's not actually that good of a singer. Would you not see it in your like in your heart to tell your friend?
Mm.
Likewise, these shows make it a point to ridicule, to humiliate, and then to demolish these people's potential careers. Yes, there are a couple of really great stories that come out of it. For example, if I'm correct, Shannon Knoll really did build a career out of it, despite having been, I think, a blue collar dude for quite some years
Mm.
before he went on Australian Idol. Um, I believe the entire gimmick behind Susan Boyle making it anywhere really was just because Simon Cowell just wanted to take the piss out of the fact that she was not conventionally attractive.
Yeah.
Um, and so on and so forth. These shows are the first thing that I would get rid of in the music industry because they serve no purpose other than trivializing the pursuit of art down to a fucking soundbite and a viral meme,
Mm.
and maybe a performance that might move some people. Like,
Mm.
no one really thinks about the Guy Sebastian performance of Angels Brought Me Here. No one gives a fuck about that. But what they
No.
cared about was that he won and then proceeded to do something with that. Okay, fine. Guy Sebastian at national export, good for him. But
And
that's
even then, he didn't
irrelevant.
do anything really, really spectacular until he done that thing with Lupe Fiasco.
I
And
mean,
amidst
look,
other things. Yeah,
there's
but
lots
that's
of
that's neither here
there's
nor there.
lots of
Like,
issues with like contractual stuff that he got
yeah,
bogged down with, and that
that's right.
sort of stuff really had a lot of damage,
Yeah.
caused a lot of
Mm.
damage to his career, really. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's yeah,
But the
they're
first red flag
horrific
is
and they're
that
embarrassing. And
you're trying to make music on a TV show. That should be the first red
and
flag.
how many
Yeah.
people? Yeah, you're right. I mean, the people that maybe that have been humiliated on these shows, like, okay, maybe they're not that great, and they're not as good as they think that they are, right?
Yeah.
Give them a polite wake up call,
Yeah.
but you don't have to fucking embarrass them. You don't have to portray them
Nationally.
and it's not even necessarily the judges; it's the way that it's produced for TV that
Yeah.
embarrass. And it's like, how many people have kind of done that, and instead of going, okay, maybe I'm not where I thought I was, like I'll go and get lessons or I'll seek out this, that, and the other to try and think, they just like, I'm never singing again. I'm never
That's
singing,
it.
I'm never performing again. They just, their whole, like their love for music is just killed by their time on this fucking, in that system.
That's right.
And it is, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we could,
And like I think the last point I'd like to make on that to support my argument is the fact that not only does it trivialize so much of the performances, it has single-handedly given rise to the public perception that a music career is only public performance, not just of, and especially so of covers. Originals have no place in such shows, so you have to play what pays. So you end up with a bunch of people who are singing, I wouldn't say generic, but they're singing covers of songs and only covers. Once in an aeon do you see somebody come through with, oh, here's an original song I wrote in my bedroom. Nobody's heard this, even my parents. Bullshit. But nobody's heard this except maybe my partner. Even my parents haven't heard this. And they come up and sing their original song. And then for the rest of the season, it's all covers. So the public perception of it is that the only career in music that's viable is one through exorbitant, unrealistic fame, playing live covers, and nothing else, which is incredibly inaccurate. It's less than 0.1% of viable music careers, and beyond that, it's just plain wrong. It's just morally, statistically, and ethically wrong. So no, first thing I would get rid of if I had a genie in a lamp, talent shows, get fucked.
awesome.
Like it.
Awesome.
I
I love
love it.
that. And I love your passion and that you're able to back up your argument like that. So it's awesome.
Appreciate.
You can tell you can tell you've been in it. You can tell
Yeah.
you've been in the business, and you've seen, you know your shit, right?
Go my 1,000-yard stare. Look, second thing I would get rid of. Holy shit. I would get rid of the requirement or even the ability to have social media for artists and musicians. I think social media has created a cult of personality. I think it has created unrealistic expectations that have ambiguated blurred the line between musician and personality and marketer and comedian and this and that. Imagine a world where musicians did not need a social media account to be heard. What would be the alternatives?
The music?
They would just be music. They would have to invest some time and money in practicing. Wow. They would have to invest some time and money in getting a decent show reel. Yes, it's 2025, so you've got to have a decent show reel to show a promoter or an agent or a venue manager what you sound and look like, what your vibe is. They may even have to cultivate some stage presence. How many performances have we seen where the music is okay, the music's all right, but the vibe is dead? The vibe is dead.
And
The music
there,
might be
stood
very...
there like this the whole time, like looking at their hands.
Oh, 100%. Look, I joke constantly about having guitar straps at nerd height because I love that shit. I love the facility. I love the ergonomics of it. 100%. I have also learnt how to play it at fucking knuckle drag height. Why? Because
it's not so
as much as I would...
It's not so much the height, sorry, I was thinking it's more like the constant watching of the hands.
No, yeah. But like just bouncing off of that, like the whole idea of just like the whole image that we have associated with that, right? There can only be so many Tosin Abasis in the world.
Yes.
Right? Tosin, absolutely legendary guitarist, but the dude sits on a bass stool with Javier Reyes. Javier Reyes?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that is his
Thank you.
name.
No, I didn't want to get his name wrong, but yes, Javier Reyes. And the two of them sit with a drummer in between them and then play tracks at people. There are only so many people who can do that. There is a limited supply of space for that kind of stuff. It hurts to say it, but that is an absolute truth. You cannot have everyone sitting on bass stools playing at people because most of the common people, to use a horrible word here, the plebs, the common populace,
The lay person.
the layperson. There we go. The layperson does not have the prescience nor the the width of mind to be able to just sit and listen. They want to see, they want to hear with their eyes, they want to get a performance. If they wanted to just get what they could hear off of Spotify live, they would just play Spotify in a shittily treated acoustic living room. They would just play it in a bathroom and they would get probably a better sound quality than your shitty live gig with a sound engineer who's underpaid. Like, it's social media has taken away from the time and the value that musicians should be spending where it counts. If I could snap my fingers, I would remove the ability for social media to ever be used for musicians and artists.
Yeah.
Yes.
Strongly
I
agree.
love that.
Strongly agree.
Oh, I love that.
I've bemoaned this constantly on the podcast over the years, so I won't go into my rant on it again. But I 100% agree. I think that the need for musicians to become content creators to try and promote their work is just it is killing people's talent. It's changing the game. It's in a way that is, and this is could be just old man yelling at cloud. I don't know. Like, but I remember when you followed a band on Facebook and you actually got to see all of their posts, and when bands could, invite people to a gig via a Facebook event, and the numbers were actually reflective of people who were going to show up or not, for the most part. And those sorts of things, it's just the way it's changed to this algorithm driven model, which is a double-edged sword, because it allows for discoverability in a new way as well, and I've found so many incredible bands through it. But it's what it takes away from artists, I think, is far more than what can be gained from
100%. The comments you're making there, have you heard of the phrase orphan crushing machine?
No, I haven't.
It's a wonderful 3-word summary of a much sort of greater debate, which is where, for example, you'll hear a story about, like, a father who has raised $20,000 for his son to get life-saving surgery because his kidney is failing or something, and there's no nearby donors. Even the father can't donate his kidney for some reason, so the son's life is saved because $20,000 was raised. And the common comment you'll see on such stories, these sob stories, very real stories, but these stories, is orphan crushing machine, because the notion is a father has saved his son from the orphan crushing machine. We have a societal machine that crushes orphans, and someone has saved their child from this machine. How wonderful. Why the fuck do we have an orphan crushing machine? Why the fuck do we have a society and a financial culture that is so deeply embedded that forces musicians to burn themselves out, that forces musicians to completely go sidetrack? Like, don't get me wrong, I love finding out that a musician is a human and has a sense of humor, but I despise the fact that I now auto swipe. Like, my finger moves before my brain can react. It auto swipes the moment I see musician content creators on my TikTok or Instagram or Facebook feed, because 99.95% of the time, and I probably am not even exaggerating when I say that figure, 99.95% of the time, it is not music related. It's some shit like, oh, this is what happens when a guitarist learns how to play Skibbity Toilet, but instead it's on the fretboard. Motherfucker, I want to hear your music. I don't want to hear your shithead meme.
Yeah.
And like,
I agree. Imagine how much better the music will be if musicians actually have time to make music and not have to fuck around on the internet.
Absolutely. Like, you could have musicians being comedians. What a concept. Frank Zappa, incredibly serious, but kind of funny. Widow Yankovic, career comedian musician, 100% would do it.
It sits in its whole genre on itself. We've Australian comedians have done it for ages. What was his name? Fuck. He used to pepper people. back in the day. Oh,
You know what I mean?
it was a
Like Kevin Bloody Wilson or like
Kelvin Bloody
Weird
Wilson
Al.
and shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like
But even
they,
bands like groups like comedy acts like Axis of Awesome,
Yep.
making their sort of stuff as
it's a
well.
whole genre
You
in
know, Bill
itself.
Flight of the
Bay.
Concords,
Yep, Flight of the Conchords. Bill
Yep,
Bailey putting
Tim Minchin.
music. Tim Minchin. Yep, everything. It's yeah. There's room for for that stuff. But I get what you mean. Yeah, the social media thing is like I said, we've talked about it till we're
Yeah.
fucking blue in the
Yeah,
face on the
and
podcast before. So
I won't one up you in this in the sense, but I will play on what you were saying earlier of like old man yells at cloud. I remember a time where you would sign up for a newsletter, or you would simply go to the band's website.
mm,
What a
yep.
concept! You would hear a record, you'd go to a gig, or you'd turn up at a bar with some mates. You'd hear some bit of music. You'd be like, "Oh shit, what the fuck is that? Who are these guys?" And then you'd look them up. You would go out of your way to look them up, and then you'd say, "Oh, sick! All right, let's just bookmark this website. Okay, sick. I'll
Mm.
check on them, or something will come up. I'll sign up for a newsletter or some shit." I know email is
Well,
trash, and that's extremely like millennial boomer of me to mention emails, but there are modern ways to get notifications as to when a band of which you are interested, in which you are interested, to see a gig.
Well, mailing lists are a
And
thing. Mailing lists are a big, like a lot of bands are
yeah,
trying to do the mailing list thing now because
that's
it
right.
cuts through better. It's much more direct than,
Mm-hmm.
social media. Like if they're on the mailing list, they're getting your email. It is a direct line from the artist to the fans on the list. And it is something that,
personal too.
obviously if everyone's doing it, then it kind of doesn't work as well. But at the moment,
Yep.
at the moment at least, if it's not a lot of bands are doing it. So if you want to be able to reach people, email lists are actually quite viable at the moment.
Absolutely.
So definitely worthwhile checking out. Okay, and what's your third thing? What's your third thing that you would
Okay, so this isn't so
eliminate?
much something that I would erase, but something I would change.
Hmm.
Something that I would really like to see is better legal representation uh, for independent artists when they get in touch with labels or promoters or A&Rs. So something I see time and time again is an artist that has either, for example, they've recorded with me, and then they've asked me, "Oh, could you function as a label or a manager for me?" And because you're knowledgeable, blah blah blah, and I'll say, "No." I basically refuse to be a label. I'm not going to try to become part of the machine to change it from within. Like no. I'm just not going to even do that. I refuse. So my advice to them is just get good advice. And we have things like legal aid, but most of the time it doesn't really cover intellectual property very well. And most, not only pro bono, but also just most lawyers who are willing to work at a lower rate don't tend to be so specialized towards like music or the arts in general. And so they don't really have a good gauge as to what is appropriate and what is livable and what's workable. The truth is, musicians get absolutely hammered when anything legal comes their way, because the truth of the matter is, those two things don't often mix. Like having legal literacy, when I say legal, I mean legalese. Legalese
Yeah,
literacy is totally different to having good literary comprehension.
yeah.
Like most musicians are really well read and are pretty intelligent folks, but legalese is its whole separate thing. And if I could change one thing, I would have a court-appointed lawyer, like on the tax dollar, if it must be practical, right? But just magically, I would have a lawyer help just pass the language, just parse through the language, and just cut through the noise of all the legalese, explaining in basic terms to the musician in question what this entails.
Mm.
Because a lot of musicians are pretty shit with money. When I say that, I don't mean like they spend all the money on drugs. When I say shit with money, is that they don't really have the
Disposable
financial
income.
literacy, disposable income. They don't have the financial literacy to really think of things in the big picture. When they hear something like a 50% on mechanical royalties, they don't know what the fuck that means. That
Yeah.
most musicians don't even understand what the word royalty means. They just think royalty means 50 cents to the dollar. That's what I get. And that's not the truth of the matter, right? And so I would, if I could, empower a lawyer to be in the room and just demystify, explain, or even better, fight for. Because those are three very, very different things. Just having someone explain stuff, that's fine. That's just being a consultant. To explain, to kind of clarify the legalese of things, that's when they're actually your lawyer and they're trying to work through the language with you to make the contract happen in a way that is positive for you, and then fight for you is to very much try to argue a better case. We have conveyances for house purchases. These are
For that
serious.
exact reason.
For that
Yeah.
exact reason, we have conveyances for house purchases because these are hundreds of thousands, $1 million things in today's world. Fucked as it is, like we could be sitting here screaming about the house prices, but we have lawyers for this. The music industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry internationally speaking. Nationally, we're talking multi-million dollars. It makes more money than the rugby or any of the combined sports multiplied. And yet, the music industry consistently takes advantage of the people that produce its product. I'm not just getting all communist and saying we need to seize the means of production, but I am saying that it would be really, really nice to know how much of my work is being stolen before I make a buck. And
Yep.
No, you're
just
right.
having that legal clarification would be such a valuable thing. There are some really good like content creators out there who are helping to balance the scales a little bit. I for one follow a couple of lawyer types, but I'm also a fucking nerd, as we've identified. I am a nerd for this shit. Most musicians aren't even consciously thinking about it, and if they do, they usually dismiss it, which is like not a comment in the negative on the musician, because it's not your job. You shouldn't, like I said, have to be a marketing agent and a fucking comedian making unrelated shit on social media. You shouldn't have to be getting on fucking talent shows and signing bullshit contracts with these shows in the first place. But even putting that aside, you shouldn't have to be legally literate.
No.
You shouldn't have to be. You should be able to contract a conveyancer.
Not to that kind
Not
of
to that degree.
anyway. Yeah.
You should be able to contract a conveyancer at a reasonable rate so as to convey the value of these kinds of contracts. But unfortunately, legal costs are expensive. You can say it's reasonable or not. I'm friends with lawyers. I know what this kind of stuff does cost, and there are considerable hours worked. So they're not all blood-sucking scum. But at the same time, for most musicians, those kinds of costs are just unreachable.
Yeah. And I mean,
And so
if you're looking for people for accounts to follow on social media to help sort of put some of these things out there, like I've similar, like I follow a couple of them online as well. There's one guy on TikTok. I think he's UK based, so I don't know how much of it sort of applies over in Australia necessarily, but there is some similarities, and he just kind of covers general topics to consider as well. But I think he's by the name of I think it's Chris Brown is actually the guy's name.
right.
He's a UK music lawyer, and
Awesome.
yeah, he covers. If you just search up like music lawyer or music legal advice on TikTok, you will find accounts that will help you understand stuff. And it's not even like they don't even go into like all the legalese necessarily. It's just like watch out for these traps, make sure you're aware of XYZ, don't ignore these things. And they're constantly saying like always get the contracts reviewed before you sign them. I know that's
100%.
not, I know that like money is a key thing here. And as you say, a lot of musicians are not in a position to splash a lot of cash on a solicitor to help out with stuff like that. But it's
Yeah.
That's why you need to keep musicians starved, mate.
it's a
Because
little
when
bit.
those contracts do come along,
The thing is,
they're just
though,
going to fucking sign it.
the thing is though, it's getting a solicitor to review these kind of contracts before you sign them is insurance. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the saying that I've heard. You've probably heard the saying: if you can't afford to have insurance, you can't afford to not have insurance.
Exactly right.
And
Like if you can't afford to insure your car, you probably
Shouldn't have a
should
car.
take the bus.
you probably well, yeah, you probably if you can't afford to insure your car, you damn well can't afford to replace it.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you need
Or someone else's.
or someone else's, right? Like if you can't afford to have insurance, you can't afford to not have insurance. And it's the same thing with these. If you're not in a position where you can't, you're like, fuck, if this contract screws me over, like I lose, it's gonna like kill my career, it's gonna do all this stuff, then you cannot afford to not pay someone to review that contract.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. And I know
Absolutely.
it's easier said than done. I fully admit that it's easier said than done. But at the end of the day, you have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And
have
that's
to
why that's
protect
my
yourself.
third one.
Yeah.
That's my
No.
third genie wish right there.
100%.
That's
100%.
good. They
That's
were
great.
great ones.
That was some really, really good ones and some nice insight offered behind those. I knew as soon as we started talking for the podcast, I'm like, he's going to have he's going to have some good ones there and some really good insight behind them. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, my man. Like, this has been amazing chatting with you. And everyone, thank you for watching this. Right. If you watched all of our videos with Van Leucia, you're a legend if you've watched all these videos too. You absolutely are.
Thank you, guys.
If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you didn't, downvote the shit out of it. If you've enjoyed your time with us today and with Van Leucia, go and check out his links as well. Go and subscribe to him on all the things. Give us a subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're so inclined. But look, thank you so much for watching this far. I have been the Reverend Rav, along with the beer buddy Kyle and our good friend Van Leucia. Take care of yourselves. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.
Peace.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We really hope you had a good time. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell down there. It helps the channel grow. We are still a fairly young channel and we like to try and grow our audience all over the world. We do also, for those of you who are interested, have a Patreon. It's just a couple of bucks a month. At the moment, you get all the videos early and ad-free, but we are working on ways to increase the value of that and make it a bit more enticing. So don't forget to keep an eye out and check back on what's going on over there. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.